Yeah, that's nice.
What's up guys, it's REV J again. Well, it's the start of day 2. If you guys watched the first day on the project here, we went ahead and pretty much ripped everything apart to shreds here under the engine, and I mean that in the best way possible. We've got the old exhaust off, we pulled the heads off completely, pulled all the push rods and everything out of the heads, and I've got a massive pile of parts here on the floor. We did get ahead and get around to doing the poly engine mounts yesterday. That was long enough of a project by itself, but you know what? The best time to do it is when everything's apart. If I would have had to do this while everything was assembled, it would have taken a much longer time. And already you can tell there's a little bit of a difference in stiffness, and we're really excited to see how those are gonna translate once everything's back together. But that leaves us kind of where we left off and where we're starting today. Heads and everything are off. We've got the more or less bare block down here. We gotta go ahead and get it cleaned up. We're gonna remove some of the carbon from the tops of the pistons just because we have access to it to clean it all up. We're gonna take a look at the new heads, go ahead and clean all the mating surfaces up, take a look at the head gasket, and get ready to start setting some of this stuff back in place. We've got the push rods sitting over here. I've also got new lifters and new lifter trays, so we're gonna have to soak the new lifters just for a little bit and get the trays ready and everything like that. And then hopefully at some point during today we will be back thoroughly in the reassembly phase. But like I said, before any of that happens, it's still some cleaning up and some prepping. So let's go take a look at the deck surface here, start getting it cleaned up, and then we can take a look at the new heads and kind of go from there. Alright guys, so we've got everything off like I showed you a minute ago, and we spent the last, I don't know, half hour or so cleaning all the carbon and various leftover gasket material and stuff like that off the deck surface and off the pistons. We made sure to clean the walls of the pistons to the sleeves just in case. There's nothing in there, there's no crud, no metal, no sign of wear or tear, which is good for us. Really, I'm pretty happy with the condition of the block. Right now, this was a takeout motor, so we're thinking it's got around, this is probably close to 70-some thousand miles on it now, almost 80 probably. And you can still see the cross hatching on all the walls of each of the cylinders. So I mean, they're in pretty good shape. We've got everything cleaned up. The carbon takes a while to get off, but some carb cleaner and like a brass bristle brush or a nylon bristle brush, I can't fucking say that, bristle brush. And we've also got some little plastic scrapers. Don't use razor blades, don't use anything really abrasive. Some people will use a little bit of like a roll-lock disc or like a Scotch-Brite or some steel wool or something. I guess maybe you could, but you'd have to be careful. There are a lot of abrasives in that, and obviously it's a little bit of a concern. Ours is pretty clean here, so we're just getting ready to go. We're gonna finish taking out the lifters and the lifter trays, and then once we pour a little bit of oil through the block to clean out any abrasives or anything that are sitting in any of the surfaces that we used, then it's draining the oil, cleaning the block out with a little compressed air and stuff like that, and all the bolt holes, drying the bolt holes. It's still a long way to go, but we are pretty much on the start reassembling stuff phase as soon as we get the lifters out. So I guess we might as well move on to the lifters, and then stuff can start going back on the motor finally. A great way to break your LS motor is to go ahead and let water get into the head bolt holes before torquing them down. It was important we went ahead and used compressed air to blow out all those holes, then used some rolled up paper towel to wick any existing moisture away, ensuring a completely clean, dry hole for the new head hardware. Alright guys, so we're laying everything out with our new hardware to get ready to do the installation, and now keep in mind, from 99 to 03, they used the 3 different size bolts. So you have a couple different size head bolts actually in the kit, and it's usually a little bit more money. In mid-year 04, so 04 is the cutoff, they went to all one size bolt. Just important to keep that in mind when you're ordering these. Now, one thing we noticed while reading the instructions, and of course ARP has its own instructions, is that these washers that come with the kit actually have a chamfered side. And if you look at number 3 on the instructions here, it says position the chamfered side of the washer on the bolt so it faces the bolt head. Meaning, this goes up. Up is the easiest way to explain it. This goes up on all of these that take it. And the best part is, if you read here, this is done to clear the radius on the underside of the head of the bolt. Improper installation of the washer will cause premature bolt failure. Premature bolt failure is no fun for anyone involved, and is pretty much the reason we spent damn near $200 on ARP bolts in the first place. So we're going to go ahead and get these all lined up correctly, and there are two different sizes too. You've got the small ones for the other guys, and get them all lined up on the bolts here. We've already made sure we have the proper amount of bolts and check that they're all in good shape and have good threads. With ARP, that's not usually a problem, but now is the time to do it. The last thing you want is to put a shitty bolt in your motor and realize that that undid all the work you just spent the last 2 days working on. So we'll get our hardware squared away and we can move on. After removing the lifters from the oil bath, I can put them into the trays and then slide all 4 lifters in the tray in as one unit. I've got a set of new LS7 lifters. That's GM's OE replacement for any LS-powered vehicle that isn't using AFM. I also picked up some new lifter trays for cheap insurance that the lifters wouldn't spin once we already had the heads on. After all 4 trays were installed, they could be torqued to spec. Using a brass hammer or a dead blow, lightly tap the guide pins into the block. Give the mating surface of the block a final cleaning, and you can align the head gasket. With the new gasket on, the heads can be aligned over the guide pins and set into place. ARP includes their own lubricant, which must be used on the head studs to ensure proper torque. And then all 15 of the head bolts can be lightly threaded into place. Now the important part, the torque sequence. You need to use GM's torque sequence with ARP's torque specs in order to provide both the right level of clamping force for the heads and for the hardware. Then I can drop the push rods back into place, making sure to lubricate their heads. I also lubricate the top of the valves and springs before reinstalling the rocker arms. Then the rocker arms can be reinstalled and torqued back down according to GM's procedure. Wow guys, that was a ton of work. Pretty much what we expected. Didn't run into any real big hang-ups, thankfully. It's all about kind of taking your time, cleaning everything out, making sure water doesn't get into those bolt holes, you know, aligning the gasket, simple things like that, trying to maintain as clean of a work environment as you can, which, let's face it, in a garage isn't always the easiest thing to do. Both heads are on. The torque sequence is super important that I showed you guys. Obviously, I really recommend getting that engine manual, or at least looking all this stuff up and having it kind of printed out and ready to go, because that is not the kind of thing you want to forget and do at the last minute or do incorrectly. So all those are tightened down. We've got all the rocker stuff, the Valvetrain stuff is in place and torqued to spec. And we're pretty much ready to go. As you see, we blocked off the intake ports now because everything's back together and I don't want to have to take the heads off again to get at anything. And this is probably a pretty good time to take a break right now. Thank you guys for watching. I've got my information up at the top here. Watch all the rest of the C10 videos. We're gonna come back, put the rest of the stuff on the top end here, and start mounting up the new long tube headers or mid tube headers exhaust that we've got. There's a bunch more to be done, obviously, front accessories, all the wiring's gotta get plugged back in. And then that scary moment when you fire it up and hope it doesn't blow the fuck up. So, we will be back for that, guys, but for right now, we're gonna leave it here. Thank you guys for watching.